I'm the Comic Weekly Man, the jolly Comic Weekly Man, and I'm here to read the funnies to you happy boys and honeys. Yes, boys and girls, it's Comic Weekly time, and here I come right into your house to bring a little fun and happiness. Right out of the pages of Puck the Comic Weekly, straight into your living room, your friend, the Comic Weekly Man, the jolly Comic Weekly Man. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Little Miss Honey, how are you today?
I'm fine, and I know a riddle.
Well, quick, tell it to me.
Why did the moron throw his alarm clock out of the window?
Why did the moron... throw his alarm clock out the window? I give up. Why did the moron throw his alarm clock out of the window?
He wanted to see time fly.
Oh, that's very good.
Do you know any moronic riddles?
I think I do. Why did the moron take a bottle of catsup to bed?
That one I never heard. Why did he take the catsup? Oh, that sounds crazy. Why did he?
To catch up on his sleep.
Oh, that's silly. To catch up on his sleeve. Now will you read me the funnies?
Puck the Comic
Yeah.
Weekly? Very well, I will in just a moment. But before I do, let's listen to this nice man. Now, here we go with Puck the Comic Weekly. And on the first page, Hop Along Cassidy.
Magic words for the music, please.
Very well, my lady. 6 guns blazing as he thunders along. Give us music for Hop Along. Sloat the outlaw had slipped into the town of Buckskin to see Doc Wiley, another crook. Sloat happened to look out the doc's window and saw Hoppy riding into town. Wiley told Sloat to take his horse and buggy and slip out the back way. As soon as Sloat was out of sight, Doc Wiley double-crossed him and sent Hoppy after him. Hoppy caught up with Sloat, captured him, and started to question him at a spot outside of town. Suddenly, a shot rings out, and Sloat keels over dead before Hoppy's eyes. At this moment, Lucky, California, and the others of the posse ride up. Hoppy tells Lucky, first picture, second row, I nabbed him when his rig overturned. Then Hoppy draws his gun and walks toward a field of huge boulders, saying, he was starting to tell me who's behind the ghost raiders when somebody drilled him. The shot came from behind those rocks. The man behind the rocks who fired the shot is Doc Wiley, who sees Hoppy heading toward him. Wiley knows he's cornered. First picture, fourth row, the sheriff calls, come out with your hands high. Suddenly, a horse gallops out from behind the rocks, heading down the trail. California yells, hey, here goes the bushwhacker. The sheriff yells, quick, our horses. They all run for their horses, mount, and head down the trail after the man on horseback. As they disappear down the trail, Doc Wiley, without his hat and coat, stands up behind a rock, first picture, fifth row, and says, well, for a moment I thought they had me. But now to slip back into town, and no one will be the wiser. Last picture, fifth row, Hoppy draws closer and closer to the fleeing rider. First picture, bottom row, he draws up behind him and jerks him out of the saddle. Last picture, the rest rein in their horses. California sees Hoppy holding a dummy wearing a hat and coat. He exclaims, hey, what's that? Hoppy replies, our bushwhacker. Whoever killed Sloat decoyed us with a hat, a blanket roll, and a coat.
Oh, dear, that Doc Wiley fooled Hoppy again, didn't he?
Yes, I'll have to admit that was a clever scheme, to tie a hat and coat around a blanket and then tie it to the saddle so it would look like a man was riding the horse and then chase the horse away.
Do you think they can get back there to the place where he was hiding and get him before he gets to town? After all, they have horses and Doc Wiley's on foot now.
Well, that's something we'll have to find out next week.
All right. Now can we read Prince Valiant? I'm sure he's on page 3.
Well, let's turn over the page and see.
Mm-hmm. See? I'm right. There he is.
You are. And remember last week that Val made young Arf believe that he could still do lots of wonderful things even though he's lost one of his legs?
That's right. And then Val went to join the rest of his friends in the city of Ravenna to get ready for the journey back to Thor. Let's read now and see if they begin the trip today.
Very well. Here we go with Prince Valiant in the days of King Arthur. Hecate, Brecket, Grey Malkin, and Quince. Music romantic for a fair, fair prince. Back in Ravenna, three friends, tried and true, make merry at a banquet, first picture, for the time of parting is at hand. Jarl Egil and Rufus Regan are to see that the caravan of churchmen, their servants and luggage, come safely over the long road to Thule. Prince Valiant must go by the perilous sea route. For to young Arf, who we see hard at work in the second picture, the land journey would be too painful, and Val will not let him go alone. So Val and his friends have a big banquet, at which they have a jolly, jolly time. Then Val goes to Rome and picks up Arf. A litter is made for him, which is suspended between two horses. And first picture next row, the trip to the coast begins, with Val and Arf and two servants. But Arf's leg still pains him, and the trip to the coast is one long agony. And finally it's reached, and here a sturdy ship is found. A ship bound for Sicily, where men of the north have settled in great numbers and carry on trade with their homelands. Once at sea, last picture, second row, Arf tries faithfully to master the art of walking again with a rude crutch that Val has made for him. He struggles manfully as Val helps him. First picture, bottom row, their ship passes Mount Etna, a volcano which sends hot lava shooting up into the air with huge billowing clouds of smoke. Mount Etna, breathing terribly, threatens them for a while, and then is left behind. Last picture, they come at last to Syracuse, where long ago the power of Athens was broken, and Rome took its place as mistress of the world. Here, in this busy harbor, they hope to find a ship sailing for Thule.
Oh, I think Arf is brave to take that long trip when he still doesn't feel completely well.
Yes, he is brave, but I'm sure he'll get along fine now with such a true friend as Val to help him.
Yes, I think so, too. It's wonderful to have a good friend like Val.
Yes, you bet it is.
And it's nice to have a good friend like you to read me the funnies every Sunday.
Well, it's nice to have a good friend like you to listen to me.
Next week we'll learn more about their trip home, won't we?
Oh, you bet we will. Well, now, how would you like to read Donald Duck?
Oh, I just love to read Donald Duck. You know that.
Very well, then let's go over the page, past the Lone Ranger, past Jungle Jim, and on page 6, in the middle, there's Donald Duck. Say the magic words with me. Squeejum, squeejum, squiddy, chicka, chack. Let's have music to fit a quack, quack. Today, Donald and his three nephews are going on a mountain climbing expedition. Donald has a flag with the words painted on it.
Donald Duck's Man-Killer Mountain Expedition.
And Donald says to Louie,
We're going to plant this flag on the summit.
the summit is the very top of the mountain. Donald says,
If we make it, we'll be the first ever to set foot on the summit.
They tie a rope to each other so no one will slip and fall, and they begin the climb, third picture, top row. As they sweat and toil, Donald says,
And this will take all my skill and ingenuity.
Finally, they reach the top of the first peak. They see 30 feet away another peak, a little higher, so Donald takes careful aim and flips his rope, which settles around the top of the other peak. And Donald ties the rope around the peak he's standing on. And then, last picture, top row, Donald and his three nephews walk across the rope like tightrope walkers at a circus. And they reach the top of the second peak. Then they start climbing up another peak, which goes almost straight up. First picture, bottom row. Donald says as he groans,
Courage, boys. Remember, the honor that will be ours.
Nearer and nearer the top they get. Finally, Donald says,
It won't be long now, boys. I can see the top.
On and on they climb. Finally, Donald reaches up, finds a hold on the ledge with his fingertips, and says to his nephews,
This is it, boys. The summit.
And he pulls himself up, peeks over the edge, and sees something that makes his eyes pop together. Last picture, his nephews stick their heads over the edge, and they see a sign which reads, For the better view lots, see Hitch and Company, real estate brokers. Yeah.
Oh, poor Donald. After all that trouble thinking he's going to be the first one to plant the flag at the top of the mountain, then he finds that someone else has been there before.
Yes.
But how did those other people get there?
Apparently, there must be a road that goes up the other side of the mountain, which Donald didn't see.
Oh, that Donald.
Well, now, what would you like?
Oh, I'd love Dagwood and Blondie, please.
I'd love 'em, too, so let's pick up the first page of the second section. And here we go with Dagwood and Blondie. Ramafoo, Ramafum, Zim Zam Zombie. Conjure me music for Dagwood and Blondie. Dagwood starts getting ready for bed, saying to Blondie, I'm going to bed early tonight and get a good night's sleep. I need the rest. Meanwhile, at the Dither's house, Dagwood's boss is having a terrible time with his wife. She's chasing after him with a chair as he screeches, Oh, Cora, no, no! And she yells, You ornery walrus! He opens the door and dashes out into the night, yelling, Oh, Cora, no, no! A little later, last picture top row, Dagwood, who is settled down in bed, hears his doorbell ringing. He sits up exclaiming, Great Scott, who can that be ringing our doorbell at this hour of the night? When he opens the door, first picture next row, Mr. Dithers grabs his hand and tells Dagwood a sad tale. Oh, Cora and I quarreled. She locked me out of our house. And a tear trickles from Dagwood's eye, the right eye. And Dagwood says, Come in. I'll make you some coffee. Half hour later, Mr. Dithers is drinking a cup of black coffee, and the tears are trickling from his eyes. And he sobs, Oh, thank you, dear boy, for your kindness. I'll sleep in the park with the other broken, unwanted, old men. And the tears roll down Dagwood's cheeks, and he sobs, Oh, no, Mr. Dithers, please don't go. I insist you stay here and sleep on our sofa. And he beds Dithers down on the sofa and spreads a blanket over him. Last picture of the row, Mr. Dithers kisses Dagwood's hand and says, Dagwood, dear boy, I'll never forget this. I'll be grateful for the rest of my life. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. And then the door bursts open, and Mr. Dithers' wife dashes in, screeching, Sue, this is where you are. I've been frantic with worry about you. Mr. Dithers drops to his knees in fear, second picture, third row, and points at Dagwood, saying, Oh, it's all Dagwood's fault, dear. He insisted I spend the night here. Whereupon Mrs. Dithers leaps for Dagwood, who tries to get away. Around the room they go. Mrs. Withers yells at Dagwood, Oh, so it's your fault. So, it's you who's trying to break up our happy home. Finally, she brings him to the floor with a flying tackle. And first picture bottom row, Mrs. Dithers snarls, You home wrecker! And Mr. Dithers says, You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Dagwood Bumstead. And Mrs. Dithers goes to Mr. Dithers saying, Come, dear, we'll go back to our dear little home. And Mr. Dithers puts his arm around her and walks out the door cooing, Our little love nest. And Dagwood, who is lying on the floor, opens one black eye and then the other and dizzily staggers upstairs. Blondie takes one look at his black eye and says, I thought you were the person who said he wanted a good night's sleep.
Oh, poor Dagwood. I think that's wrong. After he cried because he was so unhappy because Mr. Dithers was unhappy, then Mr. Dithers lets this happen to Dagwood.
I feel the same way, that big coward blaming Dagwood for his troubles.
You know what? Dagwood should quit his job and never work for him again. Then Mr. Dithers would be sorry.
Yes, I'll bet he would. Well, now...
Oh, look, here's Roy Rogers at the bottom of the page. Read that, please, will you?
I'll read that in just a moment, but first, here's that nice man again with something interesting to say. Now here we go again with Puck the Comic Weekly. And on the bottom of the first page of the second section, Roy Rogers, King of the Cowboys.
Magic words for the music, please.
Very well, my lady. Hi-yip-hi-yo. Now here we go with Roy and Trigger. Hi-yip-hi-yo. Roy caught up with the bandit who had stolen Trigger Jr.